Hey Alex, this decision actually impacts the Falcons in a very beneficial way. What does that mean? Now the Falcons save $12 million after they announced this morning at around 10 a.m. that Marcus Mariota would be cut. First, it's the three quarterbacks, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson. Generally considered to be the best prospects in this draft class. The Falcons have met with them, but I don't think that's the direction the Falcons will go. It is horns up on this show. They stay undefeated. They couldn't win a game a few years ago, but now they cannot lose. After that, M-I-L-T-O-N, Milton, all they do is win. In that regard, they do look better. It looks like the Todd Monken offense has taken that next step for the Dogs, and they might be on their way for another national championship.
I'm with you, man.
There were a variety of different possible outcomes that could affect the Braves' path in the postseason. Well, 3 games later, the best possible outcome occurred. What's one nice thing you can say about the New Orleans Saints? Makes sense. Is there one prospect, maybe from last year, that stood out to you, whether that was through the interview process or through those tests like you were mentioning?
A good question. I remember I was looking back at my notes from last year in these interviews, and the ones that stuck out is Desmond's.
Excuse me. If you could rename the Washington football team, what would you name it?
The Washington Runners?
Is it because we're running?
Absolutely.
Cool. Now, Kelly, I was a little bit upset that after Younghoe Koo kicked that field goal, he didn't hit him with a little shimmy. But regardless, I think Falcons fans were plenty happy to see a win. Looking good in the Navy uniforms, gold pants. Kickoff is just under half an hour here at Bobby Dodd Stadium, DJ, so the vibes are looking great out here. Just ask Deion Sanders. Look good, feel good, play good, pay good. Couldn't have said it better myself. Falcons unveiling these beauties this Sunday. Why not take a look back at the history of the Falcons helmets and uniforms? Pre-game rituals. A lot of us have them for a lot of things we do, sports, school, jobs. Before going on air myself, I like to watch some, I don't know, DJ Shockley, Russ Spencer highlights, both football and anchoring. Maybe mix in some Michael Jordan Duncan videos to get me in the zone. Write this down. No Trae Young, no DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, Lou Williams, Clint Capella, Solomon Hill. This isn't the preseason. They're all out. How could they possibly get a win against the 76ers? Well, they were on the road. Step one, they're 5-0 away from State Farm Arena their last 5 games. First quarter, John the Baptist, Mr. Collins, oops it over to Onyeka Okongwu. Usually we're used to seeing John Collins do the dunking. Hey, he can dish it too. 725 days. It has been that long since the Georgia Bulldogs have graced the field of Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the SEC title game. Dog fans might recall or may have chosen to forget that 37-10 drubbing from Joe Burrow's Tigers.
Tight end set, spread wide. Vincent.
That's it. Wow. Yes, sir. Q Moses.
When Preston Moses thinks about the 2005 SEC title game, he thinks of one play.
I remember the squeeze down on this play right here. When he made that play on Jamarcus Russell, I was like, wow. I mean, my head, I already got a big head, but it went 20 times bigger.
In 2005, All-American Quentin Moses wrapped up his best season as a Georgia Bulldog.
You know, we're the champs of the East right now. We're trying to go.
11.5 sacks plus his 44 tackles helped propel a group of players to a conference title over LSU, an achievement that set the groundwork for the future of Georgia football.
You had Tyson Brown and you had Tony Taylor, DJ Shockley. Those guys changed the whole era of University of Georgia. Accomplishing something like that, he knew that he was going to be a part of history. All of the guys knew that. They were building a future for the guys that were coming behind them.
Although this year's SEC championship between the Dogs and Tigers will be at the Benz in Atlanta, Quentin's brother Preston will be in Athens for the big game, continuing a tradition the brothers had many years ago.
He would fire the grill up, you know, and he would tell me, critique me and tell me, oh, bro, you don't know what you're doing. Let me show you how to do this. So we was like, hey, let's do it together, you know, but unfortunately, you know, God had other plans.
We have some new information about a deadly house fire in Monroe over the weekend. UGA grad and former NFL player Quentin Moses was killed in that fire.
On February 12, 2017, Quentin Moses died in a house fire in Monroe. He was 33 years old.
I just remember being awakened out of my sleep and not believing it, you know.
Everything seems surreal. I just couldn't believe it, you know. My brother,
from a different mother.
My wife was sitting on the edge of the bed and I knew something was wrong. I could just tell it in her face. She was just sitting there just kind of bouncing, going back and forth. And she was like, hey, you need to kind of sit down and, you know, I have something to tell you.
In the house with Moses was his young goddaughter Jasmine and her mother Andrea. Moses was found at the door of Jasmine's room.
So at some point in time, he got up to move because he knew something was wrong.
And he was a protector. He was a protector of both of them, Andrea and Jasmine.
A role he took on 10 years earlier after his friend Xavier Goddard died in a drowning accident.
A lot of times in life, we get that job and we pray we never have to take over that responsibility, but it actually happened. And Quentin did exactly what he said he would do. You know, he was there.
The Friday before he passed, they went to the father-daughter dance. He came in and got his shirt and tie, and I was like, what's going on? He was like, me and Jasmine going to the father-daughter dance.
A promise kept to his friend for his family, who already knew the role Uncle Quentin played for them.
We were all his kids, and my uncle was kind of like a dad, brother, all of that in my life. So anytime, I would say we would talk like almost daily.
Stepping up for Jasmine was his chance to shine.
Whether it's the kids, whether it's adult, whether it's his mom, whether it's me, whether his best friend, he's gonna protect him.
The legacy of Quentin Moses on the field will most likely be remembered as tenacious, fierce, and laying a foundation for future dogs. His legacy off the field, something that transcended sacking a quarterback in the biggest game of his life.
Moses slipped inside into the back.
And exemplified through it, right until the very end.
He was more than just a football icon. He was a guardian angel. And when I say a guardian figure, it's just, if he was a friend to you, he was a true friend. And that's just, you know, when I think of family, I think of him. When I think of love, I think of him. And when you think of Quentin, if you knew him, that's what you thought about. You thought about family, you thought about love. And that right there is the meaning for me.
What's in a name?
Trey Battle! It is Trey Battle, Trey Battle!
Trey Battle did just that while at Georgia. Battle. As an undersized defensive back, Trey battled his way into the Dogs starting lineup in 2005 and never looked back.
I had an attitude that I was good enough to play and I was going to prove it.
And he did it, earning a scholarship from head coach Mark Richt after being a 165-pound walk-on just years before.
He said he wanted to give me a scholarship. I think I broke down because I literally thought that I was going to have to leave school.
A successful college career led to the NFL, where Trey bounced around teams. But when his playing days ended, he struggled to figure out who he was beyond the field. And suddenly a new battle had arrived.
As I began to think about that, I kind of became my own enemy. Some of the most dangerous places on earth is inside your own mind. I was always, under this mentality of, you have to be stoic. There's this stoicism, and you just man up. And if you have to be Atlas, you just be Atlas and carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And I really didn't know anything outside of that.
The unexpected deaths of former teammates Paul Oliver and Quentin Moses only made things worse. With an uncertain future, Trey found himself back at Athens, taking classes, until one day he was tired of carrying the weight of the world.
If I go out right now, I can still go out a winner. So I drove to a bridge, and I was sitting there, and had drove across and had driven back, and I had parked because I was trying to find the perfect spot to be successful at it. At choosing suicide.
It was only then that Trey decided to pick up the phone and call the one person he felt he could talk to.
I hadn't spoken to Coach in I don't know how long, and for some reason I just called him, and I probably didn't get 2 words out. Well, I did get 2 words out. It was, "I'm scared." Just tears, sobbing, like ugly crying, and "I'm scared." And he asked me, where are you? And I don't even remember answering, but I think he said, "It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, get to my house now." I just fell into his arms. He opened the door, and I just
started crying. And, I think these guys know I love them. And to be able to be there at that moment,
was huge.
Coach Rick called the chaplain. They ordered pizza and prayed. Rick even paid for Trey's counseling after that.
Some people think, oh, Coach cared about his players, he didn't care about winning enough. That's not true. You can do both, you know. And but if all we do is teach them blocking and tackling and throwing and catching, and that's it, we failed. We missed the mission.
Today, Trey uses the lessons from his own emotional battle as a tool. He's now a director at Victory Church in Atlanta, sharing his experience, letting others know that they're never alone and help is always one phone call away.
As we walked out, your wife said, "Thank you for answering the phone. You know, thanks for being there." And it was just crazy. But so proud of Trey.
And you know, it's not easy to talk about those kind of things sometimes. The way, you know, I think more and more people are understanding that we all have rough times, you know, and you know, thankfully, you know, there's people in Trey's life that was there to love him at the right time and just be there. And a lot of people don't have that sometimes.
Whatever you experience, whatever you go through, that perseverance is the testimony that someone needs to get them through their next hardship. And so as I look back, and as I mentioned earlier, you know, what will be my legacy? What will be my impact? And if it's just one person,
amen,
then it was worth it.
September 11th, 2004. Georgia Tech travels to 20th ranked Clemson in Death Valley to face the Tigers. Under center for the Jackets was the defending ACC Freshman of the Year, Reggie Ball.
I didn't care how it was going to happen. I was not losing that game.
With under 2 minutes to play, down 10, Ball led the comeback.
Ball from under center, sets, throws, Johnson's there, it is touchdown! Touchdown! Calvin Johnson! Touchdown. Son of a gun! He has absolutely lived up to the legendary billing.
Tossing to then freshman phenom Calvin Johnson for the game-winning touchdown pass.
I don't know the exact thoughts. I know I cussed Calvin out pretty good that night for letting one guy guard him on that one pass deflection, and then you saw what happened later.
Years later, Ball says that's one of his best moments in the white and gold. He ranks in the top 3 of nearly every Tech passing stat, yet he still has dealt with fans all over the state who shared criticism even after he left the Jackets.
It'll get to you. It'll get to you. If you're human, it'll get to you. If you stand too high, you stand too low, I mean, that's going to happen, which I learned.
But one day after a practice in 2004, before the critics chirped and before the game-winning pass, Reggie Ball made a fan that changed his perspective on any doubt he would receive.
I would play catch with him. I would catch up with him, keep in constant contact with him. But, I mean, it was just a fan that wanted to say, hey, you know, I got this situation going on, but that's not going to stop me from asking one of my favorite players to play catch.
7-year-old Carter Martin had battled Ewing sarcoma for just over a year. A huge Georgia Tech fan, Carter got the chance to play catch with his hero inside Bobby Dodd Stadium.
What he did that day with nobody else around, I think that speaks a lot about his character, because that's what character is. You know, what are you doing when the lights are off? So, pretty special guy in our family.
A few months later, the Jackets played Clemson in Death Valley. Carter, now with just days to live, watched with his family as Ball led the comeback.
He fought his dad to stay up and hear the last play on the radio when we were down 13. And he was like, no, they're going to win, they're going to win, they're going to win. And I think soon after that game, he had passed.
Carter was pretty proud of his quarterback at that night. He was, and you know, and he knew he thought that was his buddy out there playing. I was being a Tech fan and was just about to give up, and Carter would not give up, and he held in there. And I just remember thinking that God wanted him to see this incredible victory. And we knew that the end was very near. It ended up being the next day. But what a special night that was.
It gives you that sense of gratitude, another perspective. It lets you know, man, everything can be over like that. You know what I'm saying? And you know, that kid's dream was to come out here and play catch with me. You know what I'm saying? So again, perspective and gratitude, it just highlights everything that goes along and every emotion that goes along with being just grateful.
So seeing that stance that they had, I thought, okay, maybe Carter's going to be an athlete like Reggie Ball. And I thought, wow, how great would that be? But you know, as that story has unfolded and the man that Reggie is and the man that he's been to our family. That is what I would have liked to see Carter model, is not his athletic ability, but who he is as a man, because that's way more important than football.
And scoring, untouched.
Now a trainer in Atlanta, Reggie Ball is past his football days. His legacy at Georgia Tech is one that he's proud of through the highs and lows. But through it all, number one knows he had one fan that made it all worth it every Saturday on the flats.
The number one stands for that. It only takes one person to believe in it. And Carter was a fan of mine, and it always took just one person to believe in me to go. Carter stood out, you know what I'm saying? But again, it just takes that one fan to root for me, and I'm going crazy.